The rain came down so hard that afternoon it blurred the road into a sheet of silver, and most drivers sped past without looking twice at the lonely old man struggling to keep his balance on the side of the street. His coat was soaked, his shoes were covered in mud, and every painful step looked like it might be his last. Hundreds of people saw him. Hundreds looked away, but one exhausted single mother, already carrying more burdens than anyone could see, pulled her old car to the side of the road, rolled down the window, and whispered the words that would change both of their lives forever. "Get in. Let me take you home." She had no idea that by helping a stranger in the rain, she was stepping into the greatest miracle of her life. Before we continue this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us if you believe kindness always finds its way back, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness for more heartwarming stories about compassion, faith, and second chances. The woman was named Maren Collins, a 34-year-old single mother who had spent the last 7 years raising her 8-year-old son, Noah, after losing her husband to a sudden illness. Every day felt like climbing a mountain. She worked long hours as a cashier at a neighborhood grocery store, cleaned offices during weekends, and still somehow managed to smile every evening when Noah greeted her with a hug. Their small rented house had peeling paint, a leaking roof, and furniture that had seen better days, but it was filled with laughter because Maren refused to let hardship steal her son's childhood. She often skipped meals so Noah could have enough to eat, hid overdue bills inside kitchen drawers, and silently cried after Noah had fallen asleep, praying tomorrow would somehow be easier. That rainy afternoon she had just finished a long shift. She was exhausted, her back ached, and her old sedan made worrying noises every time she pressed the brakes. She still needed to buy groceries before picking Noah up from an after-school program. Every minute mattered, yet when she saw the elderly man leaning against a broken bus stop, soaked to the bone and barely able to stand, something inside her refused to drive away. She remembered her late father, who had always told her that kindness costs little but can mean everything to someone else. The old man hesitated before accepting the ride. His hands trembled as he climbed into the passenger seat. Water dripped onto the worn fabric, and he apologized over and over, embarrassed that he was making a mess. Maren simply smiled and handed him Noah's clean blanket from the back seat. The warmth of that small gesture seemed to surprise him more than the ride itself. During the drive, he quietly explained that he had been visiting an old neighborhood where he once lived, but heavy rain had arrived before he could call for transportation. His phone battery had died, and his aching knees made walking almost impossible. As they drove through the quiet streets, Maren noticed that despite his worn clothing, the old man's manners were gentle and refined. He spoke with gratitude, asked about Noah, and listened carefully whenever Maren shared little pieces of her life. She never complained about her struggles, but somehow he sensed the weight she carried. When they finally reached a modest cottage on the edge of town, he thanked her with tears shining in his eyes. Before stepping out, he looked at her as though trying to memorize her face forever. He softly said that the world desperately needed more people like her. Maren simply wished him well and drove away, believing she would never see him again. The next morning began like every other. Bills waited on the kitchen table, Noah needed breakfast before school, and Maren worried whether she had enough gasoline to make it through another week. Just as she was preparing to leave for work, a long black luxury car slowly stopped outside her tiny home. Curious neighbors peeked through their windows. Maren froze as two professionally dressed individuals stepped out and politely asked if she was Maren Collins. Her heart raced. She wondered whether some terrible mistake had happened. Instead, they handed her a sealed envelope and invited her to accompany them to a nearby estate because someone wished to personally thank her. Confused but trusting her instincts, Maren arranged for Noah to stay with a neighbor after school and followed them. When she arrived, she stood speechless before an elegant country mansion surrounded by beautiful gardens. The same elderly man from the rainy road walked toward her, now wearing a tailored suit and looking remarkably healthier. He smiled warmly before explaining the truth. His name was Theodore Ashford, a retired entrepreneur whose family had built one of the largest charitable foundations in the region. After losing his wife several years earlier, he had quietly traveled alone, often without revealing his identity, hoping to understand how ordinary people treated strangers when no reward seemed possible. He explained that many people had ignored him the previous day. Some had glanced at him with pity before driving away. Others had walked past without slowing down. Marin had been the only person who had stopped without asking for anything in return. Theodore admitted that although he had spent decades building successful companies, the loneliness after his wife's passing had left him questioning whether genuine kindness still existed. Marin had answered that question with one simple act. Instead of offering her a suitcase full of money like in fairy tales, Theodore proposed something even more meaningful. His foundation operated community education centers, food banks, and family assistance programs. He wanted Marin to become the director of a new neighborhood family resource center because, in his words, compassion could never be taught in classrooms but was already alive inside her heart. Marin could hardly believe what she was hearing. She had no management experience, but Theodore assured her that leadership built on kindness was more valuable than impressive resumes. Professional mentors would help her learn everything else. The position included a stable salary, healthcare, and educational opportunities that would finally allow Noah to attend the school he had always dreamed about. Over the following months, Marin's life slowly transformed. She no longer feared opening the mailbox because unpaid bills had stopped arriving. Noah finally had his own bedroom decorated with books, maps, and drawings of places he hoped to visit one day. More importantly, Marin discovered a purpose greater than surviving. Every morning she welcomed struggling families, comforted elderly visitors living alone, helped unemployed parents connect with resources, and reminded frightened children that hope had not abandoned them. One afternoon, while organizing donated school supplies, Marin noticed Theodore quietly watching families laugh together in the community center. His eyes reflected peace she had never seen before. He admitted that helping others through the foundation had always mattered, but witnessing ordinary kindness firsthand had restored something inside him that wealth never could. For the first time since losing his wife, he felt surrounded by family again. News of Marin's story quietly spread throughout the town. Local volunteers increased. Businesses donated food, clothing, and books. Young people began organizing neighborhood projects inspired by her example. A single decision made during one rainy afternoon created ripples that touched hundreds of lives. People who had once believed one person could never make a difference started proving themselves wrong every day. Years later, Noah stood on a stage during his university graduation. Looking into the audience, he saw his proud mother sitting beside Theodore, whose white hair had grown thinner but whose smile remained bright. Noah dedicated his speech not to success, awards, or ambition, but to a rainy afternoon when his mother had chosen compassion over convenience. He reminded everyone that heroes rarely wear uniforms or receive applause. Sometimes they simply stop their car, open the passenger door, and offer a stranger a safe ride home. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave a heartfelt comment below, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness so together we can spread more stories that remind the world compassion is never wasted. Special request. Before this story ends, please comment with the words, "Kindness always comes back," if you believe even the smallest act of compassion can change someone's life forever. As the sun set one peaceful evening, Marin stood outside the community center watching children play while elderly neighbors chatted on nearby benches. She realized that she had never become rich in the way people usually imagined. Instead, she had become wealthy in friendships, gratitude, purpose, and love. Theodore often said that rain hides the stars but never removes them from the sky. In the same way, life's hardest seasons may hide hope for a while, but they never erase it. Sometimes all it takes is one brave heart willing to stop in the middle of life's storm and say, "Get in. Let me take you home." And in helping someone else find their way, we often discover that we have finally found our own.